give a detailed account of every aspect of Father Lombard's long ministry, apostolate, for the Melbourne YCW and young workers in Melbourne and Australia. Of the founding members of the Melbourne YCW Priest Committee, from which the whole Melbourne YCW, the seedbed from which it grew, Father Frank Lombard quickly came to the fore as the principal organiser of the embryonic Melbourne YCW. His energy and determination made him the centre of action among the young priests of the diocese, who were the first graduates of the Werribee Seminary for an Indigenous clergy, so to speak, and who were interested in Catholic action for youth. Frank Lombard was born at home in Brighton, Victoria on the 24th of April 1911. He was the youngest of 5 children and the third son of John Lombard, a member of Victoria Police, and Bridget Lombard, both of whom had immigrated from Ireland in the 1880s. Father Lombard's mother appeared to be the centre of religious fervour in the household and had a great effect on Father Lombard. She insisted that the children never miss Sunday Mass, and she maintained a strong devotion to Our Lady in the family through frequent recitation of the Rosary. And this upbringing in religion certainly can be seen in Father Lombard's life as a priest. The young Frank Lombard studied at Parade Christian Brothers College before proceeding to the leaving and matriculation classes at the newly established St Kevin's College, which started here and then was at Toorak. It was a college founded to prepare academically gifted students from Christian Brothers schools for university and public service examinations, and was a key route for the working class boys and to enter into one might say the upper middle class of Australian society, Melbourne society. Father Lombard's marks were above average, but his attraction to sport curtailed any chance of outstanding academic excellence. During his leaving, or year 11 at St Kevin's, the future Father Lombard began to wonder whether or not he was called to the priesthood. A factor in his vocation was the influence of the parish priest of Heidelberg, Father James T. Norris, who had success in the late 1920s and early 1930s attracting candidates for the priesthood for the Archdiocese of Melbourne. Entering the seminary in 1929, a talent for organising people and bringing more out of them than they would suspect came to the fore. Simple, sincere and single-minded, by driving himself to the hardest, he drew others up to his level of activity. His booming voice, combined with a passionate concern for young workers in the faith, produced a powerful orator who could hold both crude and subtle minds. It was said Father Lombard's voice could fill a cathedral without any help from a microphone. His facility with the spoken word, however, did not fully carry over into the seminary classroom. Here, in the presence of more subtle raconteurs, a gullible streak led him to become the butt of good-natured jokes. A reputation for being not too bright academically seems to have developed here. But early YCW supporter Monsignor John F. Kelly remarked in an interview that Father Lombard was not unintelligent and could have taken his position in any profession, that his intelligent insight was into the pastoral significance of things. Monsignor Kelly further remarked he was essentially an idealist, but equally essentially a practical man, a man who did things. He wasn't a pragmatist who did things just because they fit in. He had his ideal, very strong and very high ideals. End of the quote. Father Lombard couldn't be missed at Werribee. The adolescent had grown into what was, by the standards of the time, a giant of a man, 6 foot 4 inches tall and 17 stone in weight. However, a splendid physique and athletic prowess at football, athletics, tennis and swimming didn't prevent him from contracting tuberculosis in 1933. On account of this, he spent 12 months in the Greenvale Sanatorium on the northwest outskirts of Melbourne. He was ordained priest by Dr. Mannix at St Patrick's Cathedral on the 26th of July 1936. Father Vinatha, the first chaplain to the most successful of the first parish YCWs in North Melbourne, in 1978 remembered Father Lombard as, quote, exuberantly energetic, unquote, and went on to sum up his aims and personality. His idea of church was that it was Christ living to save souls by every conceivable means. His idea of priesthood was that a priest was another Christ dedicated to represent in every way possible God before his people. Because of circumstances of his priestly life, which began in the working class suburb of Northcote, he realised that the school leaver, which was 14 in those days, was at a critical and difficult stage of life, and that there was no movement specifically for him, and that something had to be done about it to save souls and fulfil Christ's mission. That was the way the priests at the time described what they were doing and what they were aiming at. Father Arthur went on. As already mentioned, he was an exuberant personality, and once that exuberance was given direction, that is, the formation of a new youth to build a new Australia, everything, absolutely everything, was directed towards its fulfilment. Nothing, neither person nor thing, could be allowed to stand in the way. Father Arthur said, imagine John Nichols, we shall say Patrick Dangerfield, running the length of the MCG with the ball, determined to get the winning goal, and you have some idea of Frank Lombard's life for the years of his YCW involvement. Father Arthur continues, this exuberant determination to use everyone and everything to achieve his goal, his oratorical gifts to infuse and inspire, his courage despite native shyness to confront any obstacle, person or thing, was the force that contributed to the successful establishment of the Melbourne YCW, which for those who don't know started in 1941 with preparatory experiments starting in 1939 at Northcote. This same exuberance could at times militate against the YCW, Father Arthur said, when it blinded Father Lombard to imagine persons or ideas not consonant with him or his ideas as enemies working against him. End of the quote. I put Father Arthur in there because he was a close priestly colleague of Father Lombard, and he actually ended up going on a mission to Venezuela, and the Archdiocese set up that mission. And I think what he had to say there was a powerful sort of insight into the character of Father Lombard. Father Arthur's estimation of Father Lombard was not isolated. His judgment was confirmed in interview after interview in the late 1970s that I took with chaplains and leaders of the early YCW. Up to about 30 or 40 interviews for those who don't think that founders of the YCW weren't interviewed. This included the observation that his exuberance could work at times against the interests of the YCW. This should not surprise, as with many key leaders in history, Father Lombard's personality was an intriguing mix of elements, and the supporters who admired virtuous elements in his personality were also open about his weaknesses. Monsignor Kelly did not deny that Father Lombard had an authoritarian aspect to his personality, but also said that didn't mean he made decisions without consulting other people. Monsignor Kelly said he was basically a very humble man who made decisions quickly, though preferring highly structured solutions. The same with any other dynamic leader, Monsignor Kelly said. He led from the front, took any knocks or criticisms and took it upon himself. The two lay giants of the Melbourne YCW during Father Lombard's chaplaincy, Frank McCann and Ted Long, knew Father Lombard better than most as they worked cheek by jowl to establish the YCW. Ted Long first met Father Lombard at a Kensington YCW meeting in September 1941 and was first impressed with his dynamic speaking as, quote, different from anything that I'd ever heard. And this continues with all the people who knew about Father Lombard, of his power to convince people with his passion for the young worker. Ted said in an interview in 1979, quote, "He was moved by a heartfelt concern for the young worker. He got his concern out of his love of Christ and Christ's sacrifice on the cross," end of quote. Ted further commented that naturally this meant the Mass was supreme for him. And Ted was not the only priest or layman to note that Father Lombard was fundamentally a humble man who never put himself first in the as he never put himself, to use a particular example, in the quality of the vehicle he drove, the presbytery he lived in, the clothes he wore, and the holidays he didn't have. For Ted, Father Lombard was uncompromising in his concern for workers. He didn't want to tack the YCW onto the status quo. He wanted a youth movement that was, quote, "a whole new creation." That Father Lombard was regarded as an authoritarian or a dictator didn't worry Ted long. While Father Lombard, in Ted's words, didn't brook interference, it was for a good end and for not for personal gain, in Ted's opinion. Father Patrick Ford of Sydney, an early co-worker with Father Lombard while studying in Melbourne, remarked, "Long was less of a theorist than a man for breaking through, a bit like Gough Whitlam. He believed in roughing it through, didn't go in for delicacy." This strength of character enabled him to stand up to bishops, the most famous being in November 1945, when he decided to keep the YCW out of the orbit of B.A. Santa Maria's anti-communist movement, despite Archbishop Mannix's support for Santa Maria. This hurt Lombard as he worshipped Dr. Mannix. As Ted Long remembered, Father Lombard would willingly confront persons and issues if it was for a good end. Frank McCann remembered Father Lombard as a very demanding person who was every inch a priest, quote, "loyal to the church, loyal to the hierarchy, fair dinkum Australian, loved Australia, a man's man." I think in that last sentence, those who knew Frank McCann can certainly see Frank's personality there. For Frank, Father Lombard was was a man of great vision and yet humble. Again, for Frank, who was from an economically poor part of North Melbourne, this humility was most impressive and showed itself in the fact that Father Lombard, like with Ted, never sought anything for himself, who had only one suit and one pair of shoes. Frank's quote, "He would never take a day off, going around at 100 miles an hour, fighting for this one or that for the YCW. Frank remembered his idol losing his temper down the phone with an unsympathetic bishop, and later explaining that anyone could say anything against him, but not the YCW. Frank also saw this impatience at work on the YCW tribunal, of which McCann was a member. A team was giving, as Frank said, a power of cheek to the tribunal, so Father Lombard jumped several seats and threw him down the stairs. The tribunal was a colourful place. McCann reminisced that a boy fronting the tribunal not only had hit an opponent on the field, but he'd also hit the boy at the tribunal. The boy concerned got off the striking charges, but got 2 weeks for swearing in front of a priest. After the famous 1941 grand final between North Melbourne and Newport YCW descended into a riot that flowed into the grandstand and brought police horses and policemen to the scene, Father Lombard's final question after lining up those involved was there any swearing? Father Lombard had a lifelong hatred of blasphemy and obscenity. One of the first names of the YCW in Northcote was to enrol young workers in the Holy Name Society, in which men, young and old, pledged not to use the Lord's name in vain, a pledge that was understood to be against all forms of swearing. Before concluding, given the theme of formation today, I would like to point very briefly to some of the serious discussion about formation that took place during Father Lombard's chaplaincy. At the beginning of the Melbourne YCW, the YCW method of formation at the time hoped to influence the mass of young male workers through using the leader's gospel discussion, the See Judge Act inquiry on one influence with a workmate, and then See Judge Act on social issues. This was warmly welcomed in Melbourne and elsewhere in Australia as the light on the hill solution to the church's lack of success in keeping young workers in the fold of the church once they left school at 14. Despite great success in capturing the attention of young Catholic workers with Australian rules football, learn to dance classes and other social events, the movement's key leaders from 1945 onwards noticed that while members of parish leaders groups were benefiting personally from the formation, leaders in general were not succeeding in sparking an interest among the general members in social and religious matters. The majority of young workers were interested in little more than sport, dating, not surprisingly, and entertainment. In the May 1947 Leaders Bulletin, Ted Long wrote that the lack of influence and action among a parish's young workers lay in leaders' failures to utilise the judge section of the inquiry. He believed this indicated an incomplete knowledge of the purpose of the inquiry and thus the YCW. For Ted, it was in the judge section that Christ was introduced into the process of stimulating action. As Ted and other key leaders pondered this problem in leaders groups, the Episcopal Chairman of the Australian YCW, Archbishop Simmons, added his authority to this worry about influence, saying to the 4th National Conference of the Australian YCW in September 1947, quote, "I thank God that the YCW in Australia has produced such good leaders with high ideals and true Catholic minds. But I wonder if we are fulfilling the second purpose, the main purpose of getting that spirit down to the masses. I'm afraid that the average member of the YCW is not getting the spirit that the leaders have. One of the reasons why we are not influencing the general mass is that we may be losing sight of the fact that we are a specialised section of Catholic action. That is, members of a particular group must be of the class to which they belong." In other words, the leaders were being drawn from either young middle class Catholics with a higher education or workers transiting to the middle class. The Melbourne Australian YCW in following years tried